Watch this video before it's removed from the internet.
In the Land Environmental Court, the judge stood up 4 times and bowed to me. All of the lawyers coming and going in the courtroom during the time of the 1.5-hour presentation I put on in front of 4 TV cameras. I mean, these are the big TV cameras they had in the room there, which were broadcasted all over Australia to all the courthouses so that they could watch. And then I told the judge, I says, you know, Judge, you've been on the bench 28 years, but you're the new kid on the block. You got pulled for this duty, and you've only been sitting on the bench here in Land and Environmental for 3 days. I says, and they set you up to come in front of me because they knew what I was going to do, and none of the other judges that were older than you wanted to get caught in my crosshairs. And I says, I'm the only judge in this court. I says that seal you got behind you is a good cartoon. I called it a cartoon. The judge turns around and looks at it and says, yeah, it's a cartoon. The first day I was in court with these people, underneath the seal of all the courts, they have a ribbon. The ribbon has words on it. Between the words, they have dots. Because it's a seal, a dot is used in 2 locations under syntax. On a seal, it's used as a prepositional phrase. On money, it's used as a prepositional phrase because of the restriction of space. So the dot between words, in other words, if I were to have a word here, if I put it here, it's called a period. But if I put it in the middle, that's a prepositional phrase. So if I did this, and I said for the possession, this would be for the width of with the possession. Each dot would represent a prepositional phrase. And that's syntax, folks. I says, Judge, you're here talking to me in adverb verb. You're here filing paperwork in adverb verb, and yet your seal on the back of the wall says you are advertising syntax, which means you have to be correct. Otherwise, you're guilty of perjury by signed confession. I says, and I handed you a correct parse syntax grammar lawsuit, and I am the only federal judge, and I held up my oath, in Australia. I have the only correct written contract in front of you. I says, so I have the flag, I have the oath, and I have the paperwork, and the paperwork is the court, and I signed a stamp. Where's your signed stamp? I'm postmaster, banker, and judge of this courtroom. Judge stands up and bows to me. And after the 4th bow, he walked out of the courtroom, bowed to me backwards, surrendering the court to me as a chief federal judge of Australia. Then I went up to see the Supreme Court, and they locked me out. So they wouldn't even. And then 2 weeks ago, I was in Honolulu, Hawaii. I walked in the federal building, and the guard goes, "You're Judge David Wynn Miller." And I goes, "Yeah." He says, "I got a flyer on you." He says, "You're not allowed in the building." He says, he got on the radio and he called the marshals. He says, you can only be in the building if the marshals are escorting you. So I had 5 more, the guys that run the metal detectors, 5 more sheriffs come walking over. And they're all standing there in front of me with their arms folded. This is, I must really be a dangerous person in your courthouse here. He says, "Well, you're here to arrest our judges." I says, "Yeah, I have warrants for 33 judges in your courthouse, signed by the United States Supreme Court and the World Court at The Hague. I'm the chief judge of Hawaiian Islands, federal judge." I says, "You guys are only district, which is demon god of the underworld for trickery judges." I says, "So you don't have any standing here." I says, "I've got the only standing." I says, "Not only that, you anchored your vessel, which is your courthouse building, on our